What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Just an Editor podcast. My name is Corey Cudney, and I am just an editor. But today I have with me a award-winning, that's right, South by Southwest Adobe Editing Award-winning editor of the upcoming film R#J. We got shows like Dead of Night, documentaries, and more. He's got almost every credit you can think of on his IMDb. We got writer, editor, producer, director, you name it, he's done it. Our guest today is Lam Nguyen.
Hi, Corey. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and everything. It really fits the bill so well about this podcast is I always want to have guests on that do either like really crazy cool stuff or just crazy stuff. And when I got the press release for R#J in and I was reading it, I was like, well, I have to do this because it's like such a cool idea and everything with the Screenlife format on there and everything like that. So I was very excited to be able to bring you on. For anybody who hasn't heard, I'm actually going to start right with R#J, the upcoming film that Lam edited. For anybody who hasn't caught up with it, it is a modern day telling of the Romeo and Juliet story, but with the twist is you're pretty much inside of a phone. And so it's so cool. It's like I mentioned earlier, it's like in such a good way, it's a crazy aspect where I was reading it and I was like, how are they gonna do that? So Lam, just take it from the top. I mean, how was this brought to you? What was the beginnings of it like? What was your initial reaction when this was pitched to you? You know, just everything like that.
Yeah. I was brought on by producer at Basilev's production, Maj Nassif, and I'm just grateful for him to sign me onto the company. And initially, I was just doing a lot of proof of concept trailers.
Hmm.
They had a huge success with Searching. I don't know if you've seen that movie yet with John Cho.
Oh, I think I have heard of it. Yes. That's another like Screenlife one, right?
Yeah, where it's told entirely
Mhm.
on a computer desktop, and
Yeah.
that movie surprised everyone in a good way. And so they had all these ideas of different genres with this format. And so I was doing a bunch of proof of concept trailers, and they were liking what I did and some ideas that I brought to the table with the format. And one day they were like, "Hey, Lam, we have this project that's on the top of the list of to do to get greenlit. It's a Romeo and Juliet." I was like, "Okay, classic remake, that's cool," but it's entirely told on their iPhones. I'm like, I had to pause. I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, yeah, so we're gonna go through Romeo's perspective and Juliet's perspective strictly on the iPhones. And I was like, so are we? I had I had these random basic questions. So are we having both phones on screen vertical or something like that?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the pitch. And I was so hesitant because everybody knows the story, and it's a classic story that a lot of producers and filmmakers often hesitate because you want to make sure you do it right or serve it justice, right?
Hmm.
And so he just set me up with the meeting. He's like, let me just set you up with the meeting with Carrie Williams, the director, and see what you think. And it's like, we just think this is the right one for you. I'm like, okay. So just set up a meeting, got in a meeting with Carrie, um, and we talked for like a whole hour, just brainstorming ideas of this format. And Carrie brought some really great ideas to it. Like first thing was he wanted to keep this cinematic.
Hmm.
So how do we keep this cinematic? And what Searching did really well was a lot of zooms and push-ins on the screen. They were just moving around the computer screen. And
Hmm.
so we would do the same with the iPhone. So we're like pretty much macro zooming in to the iPhone and using every square inch of it to make it work. And I'm like, okay, maybe this can work. So we spent about a good month doing a proof of concept for it. And I would throw, at first, there was like these comps, right? These iMessage comps, Instagram comps. And it's like, you're just reading. You're like, oh, this is going to get super boring.
Hmm.
Then I start to apply basic fundamental techniques to it, film techniques to it, like push-ins and dollies. And every iMessage scene, I would want it to do it a variation of it differently so it doesn't feel mundane.
Yeah.
And the proof of concept, when we start to use the FaceTime calls and how we're going to cut in between actors, and it started to work. And then we presented it to the producers. They loved what we did visually with it as well, and it got green lit. So that's how it got started.
Wow. Yeah, that's bringing up such a good point about wanting to do Romeo and Juliet justice. It like you said, such a classic tale that everybody knows and they have the expectations going into it. So how did y'all actually film, like, the actors? I assume y'all were filming it with, like, film cameras that you then brought into, just through, like, the overlay over it?
Yeah, so we filmed it on 6K cameras, the Black Magic,
Oh, nice.
those Black Magic cameras, and for this one, Carrie wanted to film it with the FaceTime calls. Both actors do at the same time, so you get the natural reactions,
Oh, nice.
and oftentimes in two different locations, or sometimes in the same location but two different areas, right, in the space.
Yeah.
And I would say that was pretty challenging because you run into a lot of technical difficulties and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
somehow we pulled it off and we filmed it that way throughout. Towards the end, Carrie started to feel like, because I was assembling cuts, I was assembling edits as we went through the as we went through production,
Mhm.
and I was like, hey, since we're able to cut in between actors, like full screen to full screen, like a normal film, a traditional film, I don't think you need to do this simultaneous if it's halting production. So the last couple scenes he would film the actors just kind of talking to the camera, with the other actors just kind of reading the script offline,
Oh,
off screen. I mean,
yeah.
and then vice versa. And so yeah, that's we kind of did it both ways, and it worked turned out well in the end.
Something that I was wondering pretty much the entire movie as an editor who loves, like, watching things and wondering how they did it. Did you guys Was there a lot of screen recording going on? Did y'all just completely reenact, like, rebuild, I should say, the UI, like, through the programs? Or what was your approach to rebuilding, the UI that a phone would have?
Yeah, so essentially, what they had us do is this. I spent 10 weeks doing a previs before production, a previs of the whole movie. I pretty much essentially built a digital set of the movie.
Yeah.
So I would do all the screen records on my phone. Well, I had a graphics team from Russia where they would kind of redraw everything in high res because we knew we were going to finish this film in 4K.
Mhm.
So they would send me Illustrator files of Instagram comps, iMessage comps, and stuff, and I would kind of use that as templates in the previs.
Mhm.
And if you see the previs, they had all these storyboards that I put in as well. Um, and then in the UIs, like the overlays of the FaceTime
Mhm.
and Instagram Live was all built in After Effects with the Illustrator files they provided me. And then previs, once we locked that, we went to film. So the previs helped as a foundation layout
Mhm.
for the cast and crew to kind of see what the movie looks like, and then they kind of envision in their head while they film. And then as they edit the actual film with the video in, yeah, it's just a lot of screen records. I mean, we had a lot of changes in post, like with Screenlife scenes, like hey, this we're missing a plot point, or we're missing a little hole here. But that's what's nice about Screenlife is, okay, we can't do a pickup shoot, but can we resolve this with the Screenlife scene, like a text message scene
Oh,
between
yeah.
Juliet and her dad, which that was, we didn't have time to film. So because we didn't film those two arguing with each other, we created a scene with a text message and made it work and
Wow.
made it dramatic. And then I would treat the screen life as that I'm editing a traditional scene where if two actors are arguing,
Mhm.
you kind of pace it up a little bit, right? The pace picks up. So
Yeah.
I would do the same with the text message, where you catch a word and you can just piece it together as it goes. And I would quick edits through that to show the intensity of the scene.
Mhm.
And so all that was screen recorded. So in the picture lock version, a lot of it was very pixelated because I would screen record my phone and I would zoom in the edit and do motion to it.
Yeah.
And then once we picture locked the whole thing, I worked with the graphics team, and I had to commend them for the hard work because it was a lot of work to read. They redrew everything. All the text message bubbles
Oh,
had to be
man.
redrawn because every text message is long or short. The bubble size is different,
Mhm.
so they had to match exactly how it looked on the actual phone. So they redrew everything, reanimated everything, and then in the process, I would be like, "Hey, can you just throw this motion in there? Like push it dolly to the right a little bit," and like it was a lot of that. So it's in a way the screen life animation part to finish off. But yeah, it was all redrawn. Everything was recreated, the UIs and everything.
Yeah, because that, like, I was watching it and I was like, "Man, I do not envy their job here," because it's one of those things that we've all seen this UI behave. We all know how it works, and so if it's off even just, like, a little bit, the viewer is gonna be like, something's up here."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it was a lot of QC and a lot of, yeah, it was. I would say this is definitely my hardest project.
Oh,
But at
man.
the same time, my proudest project because I felt like with the format and with the remake, we felt like we pulled it off pretty well. Hopefully, everyone sees it that way, but it seems to be on the right track. Hopefully. in the right home. So yeah.
Now, did y'all have to this is such a, like, silly question. Did y'all have to get, like, permissions from, like, for example, Viacom for, like, the SpongeBob GIF? Because I saw that and I was like, "Wait, how are they throwing SpongeBob in there?"
Yeah, that was tricky. We used a lot of gifs, obviously, and then
Mhm.
during the edit, we're like, man, what's the copyright to all this stuff? And apparently, the lawyers and all that, they just sift through it. So those are all pretty, I guess, what do you call it? It's like public domain in some way,
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
you can use it. You can use it. And all the emojis the same thing. So we were able to use it without any restrictions. Luckily,
Wow.
yeah.
And I was gonna ask the same thing about the music because the movie works so well because, like, yes, it's, a recreation of Shakespeare, so there's, like, a ton of dialogue in it, but there's really not, when you think about it, that much dialogue in it, and y'all do such a great job of conveying emotion and the pacing of the story and everything through the use of music. Like, how important was the music, like, these specific tracks to you, and the director and the producers and everything? Did y'all have to use like temp tracks, or were these always the tracks that y'all wanted to use? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, it's interesting. The music, well, I would say what 70% of the movie was songs
Hmm.
that Carrie really selected through those, and he picked a huge great number of songs to use, and I think that's what pulled me also this project was the diversity of the story, the diversity of the cast.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I read the script, I'm like, wow, this is going to be a different remake. This is totally not everyone had a version like this,
Hmm.
and especially in a modern way. So the music was great to show the diversity of both families too, and also the characters and how they feel. And so you're right. Actually, I didn't think about that. Yeah, there's not a lot of dialogue because we used a lot of songs to convey our emotions that we needed
Hmm.
of how our actors are feeling. And so yeah, Carrie, it was all used in the edit, all the songs, and then luckily with Picture Lock, we had to change a couple songs only, but majority of it we were able to license and use.
Hmm.
If you notice, the first half of the movie is mostly songs, and then once it
Hmm.
gets serious and more real, the composer comes in, and then in the score, I used some temp tracks to try and get the right feel, right? And that's also hard because you often fall in love with it, right? And
Yeah.
and, and so we brought it to the composer, and we're like, hey, can you just replicate that or do better than that? And our composer, his name is Rene Bascio. I hope I pronounced it right, but he was like, "Oh man, that's a tough task to do." And Rene did such an exceptional job, and I think he did way better than what we expected in terms of the temp tracks that we used in. So yeah, that's how that went.
Well, like I mentioned at the beginning, it is the South by Southwest Adobe Editing Award. So to kind of spin off of that, what kind of drove y'all's decision to keep it in like the Creative Cloud format using Premiere and After Effects and, like you mentioned earlier, Illustrator and stuff? What was the kind of determining factors, I guess, to want to cut this using Adobe?
Yeah, I think because of so much, it's so graphics heavy,
Hmm.
and a lot of it was done in After Effects because you can push in a lot of files in After Effects, but keep the text kind of like sharp and clean.
Hmm.
And because there was a lot of graphics movement, and Premiere links After Effects, the comps from After Effects into Premiere really seamlessly. So any changes I can make in After Effects, it'll just update in the Premiere edit sequence. And same thing with the Illustrator files. So I think it's just the whole Adobe suite, how the dynamic linking system communicates so well with each other that we use Adobe Premiere. And also I'm really comfortable with Premiere the last 5 6 years on my projects that I've done. So that was a choice.
Nice. Yeah, that was I was wondering, when I saw the award and everything, I was like, "Oh, man, I wonder how helpful the dynamic linking system specifically is for that." Me and my boss here in Austin use that almost all the time. He'll just send me an updated AE project, and it's like, "Okay, cool. I can just, replace the old one," and it's super seamless. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And nice with Adobe Premiere and After Effects because if you like, some of the Screenlife scenes, I have to move a lot of things like 5 layers at once. Like if I want to do a push or a dolly,
Oh, yeah.
everything has to move at once, and they're all separate layers. So at least with After Effects, I call it lasso. You kind of lasso all these layers into one one null object and use that to move everything at once. So
Oh, nice. Using it like a remote control layer type
yeah,
situation.
yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome. So I noticed your last year, you have on your IMDb that you did the Dead of Night, which is also a Screenlife thing, correct?
yeah. Because it's a Snapchat original, so it was obviously told entirely through the phone as well. But
Hmm.
this is more, I wouldn't say simplified. I mean, comparing the two, Romeo and Juliet was obviously more challenging because we're pushed in to the scenes. But with the Dead of Night, we're staying vertical because you're watching the show on your phone,
Hmm.
like if it's an actual phone of the character. So we're staying vertical all the way through. So that had its own challenges in terms of pacing as well and timing because how do you train your eye to focus on certain things while you see the whole phone? At least with Romeo and Juliet, we could just focus on a section
Hmm.
without being distracted to seeing what else is on the phone, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, Dead of Night was definitely a fun project, but it was also challenging in its own way as well.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. Like, was it coming into our hashtag J, was it like a completely different ball game? Or were you like, no, I got this. I've already done one Screen Life thing. Like I'm totally there. Or was it like a whole new set of issues to deal with?
No, I think I was presented to work on both projects almost at the same time. So I did Romeo and Juliet first,
Oh,
and then towards the end of the finishing of Romeo and Juliet, Dead and Night came along. They had this crazy 6 week deadline,
oh geez.
and they needed me on to work on the episodes, and I was like, okay, sure. And so yeah, working with Romeo and Juliet helped a lot, but I think with that experience because of Dead of Night was all just on a vertical screen where I didn't have to do much. I didn't have to do any like technical movements or anything like that.
Oh
It was
yeah.
just you're just watching the phone. But
Hmm.
the only challenge is how to keep the edits interesting and keep going,
Yeah.
because you're just looking at one vertical screen the whole time. So yeah.
Was that kind of mind blowing for you as like, movies are awesome and amazing and everything, but like Snapchat has such a market penetration like that's just unreal. So was that crazy to see that go out into the open and you're like, "Oh man, this is like on everybody's Snapchat right now."
Yeah, it was crazy. I had some friends and stuff that would text me, "Hey, that was awesome." It's so different, the Dead of Night, because Snapchat has a time limit for each episode. At least with Romeo and
Oh,
Juliet, we can take our time with our scenes
yeah.
and flesh it out. But Snapchat's like, you got 4.5 minutes to tell this episode. Like, okay. So like the text messages, everything kind of speeds up a little bit more in an unnatural way.
Mhm.
But I guess the audience accepts that, and you kind of jump in time, and then you just flip through these apps as you work through the show. So yeah,
Mm.
I thought that was pretty interesting that everyone got to see it on their phones, and because it feels like you're watching it through the character's phone, which is neat.
Yeah, it's like a cool like little immersion thing on there.
Yeah, yeah.
So how crazy is it to go from Romeo and Juliet, Dead of Night, both Screen Life, and then I'm also seeing that this year you have coming out a documentary, The Courage to Run with Chip Gaines and Gabe Grunewald. So is that like totally different? Like for you as the editor, are you having to get in a total different mindset for these two very social movies versus this one, which is I imagine going to be a more straightforward story through a documentary lens?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I worked documentary for good 5 6 years when I first started. So
Oh,
to be honest, Screen Life is just so technically heavy
mhm.
because you're not just editing the story, you're also doing graphics and technical work along the way. Um, and when I worked on The Courage to Run, for me, if it was like a relief, like, oh, I can just actually review footage and just edit, And
Oh,
but
yeah.
our documentary also has its own challenges because you have a lot of hours of footage to go through. You
Mhm.
have to sift through all the footage, handpick, select all the best stuff, and try to structure a story out of it um, in post. But yeah, it was almost like it's like riding a bicycle. When I get a chance to work on traditional film or documentary, it's like, okay, this is what I'm used to. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
So how was the Courage to Run, documentary? Was that, you said you were on that project for 4 or 5 years?
No, it was in development for like a year and a half or two, and then
Oh, okay.
because they shot a lot of the footage already of the race and stuff. We
Mhm.
just needed interview footage to film, so we finally won the bid. I worked with Ryan Ross there, Buck Ross. He an amazing producer as well, and I learned a lot through him about communications and how he struck deals together. But he brought this project to me and it's like, hey, I got a documentary about with Chip Gaines and it's about running. I'm like, okay, how's that? That doesn't sound interesting, you know. But the story had an emotional impact to it because Chip meets another runner, an athlete that inspired him
Mhm,
to change his life in a way, and it's a very inspiring story. So I did a proof of concept trailer for that as well to help win the bid, and we won it. And then they went to film the interviews, and we were able to bring Rick Ramage, which I hope I get a chance to talk to you about later because that's how I started my career was through him, an
mhm,
exceptional screenwriter over the years, and uh, he was nice enough to be involved with this project and help structure the outline of the story with the footage that we have.
mhm.
And I want to mention another wonderful producer, Shannon Umitani, who we were able to get her involved with this project as well. She's one of my closest friends since film school,
Oh,
and
nice.
she has been around all these years with me and stuck with me, read all my scripts, and just worked on the short film that we did together.
Mm,
And she's been a very supportive friend ever since. And I'm just so glad we were able to work on a big project like this together. Then I spent a good that project. I was working simultaneous with Romeo and Juliet at the same time, so it was crazy. But it was a nice. I was able to. It was nice to kind of breathe away from screen life and just focus on the real world, traditional filmmaking a little bit.
so how do you balance, like you said, watching, hours of footage just to find selects? I mean, are you watching these in, like, 30-minute chunks and then taking up to getting up to go take a walk, or what's your strategy for that? As soon as you said that, I'm, like, now interested on how you tackle that problem.
I mean, this is it's crazy. Carrie Williams, the director for Romeo and Juliet, because we work together in person a lot, and
Mhm.
he would by the end of the day, he's like, Lam, like you've been in that seat for like 8 hours straight. How you? I was like, I don't know. I get sucked into it. So for me, with the documentaries, actually with any project I do, I'm pretty intense with
Mhm.
my focus. I'm so intense that I lock in for a good 5, 6 hours, and I'm just like so determined to. I have these goals, like I got to finish this scene. I'm not gonna get up until I
Mhm.
finish it. So I just get sucked into the world of the story, and go through the selects. And I would, with the selects, I play double speed
Oh, okay.
where I get enough to hear what they're saying. But if I feel
Mhm.
like I see something good or hear something good, then I'll go back and play regular speed and then I mark it. But yeah, I have this crazy intensity about focus. I mean, I guess it's just the passion as well as an editor, and also
Mhm.
just wanting to get a draft out to the producers and directors as soon as possible because I feel like the more time we can have to refine and edit the movie, the better the project's going to turn out
Yeah.
for the deadline. So that's me. I'm always wanting to be ahead of schedule.
That is amazing that you say one specific part of that because I've always been amazed, that my boss will, like, watch for selects in double speed. I've always been like, "How do you do this, Brad?" And so the fact that you bring that up, that is amazing. That's like I've watched him do it and I'm like, "Man, like I can't keep up." But that's a really good point where you're like, you can still make out what they're saying, and so you're just intently listening and then you're like, "Okay, cool. I like that thing. That's super cool."
Yeah, yeah, and that's probably why I get sucked in for like I didn't realize I'm 5 hours later. Like, oh shoot, it's lunchtime, or I'm feeling hungry. Because I have to focus so much to make sure I'm not missing anything as I go through the dailies.
So you mentioned both for The Courage and for Romeo and Juliet about concepting trailers, and that's how you guys were getting projects. So is that something? I guess I've never really thought about that. Is that a way that you guys at the studio get projects? Is you pitch it using a concept trailer?
For the Screenlife, yes, because Screenlife is such a new language, a new format,
Hmm.
that you kind of want to have to prove it to them, like, hey, this is a comedy Screenlife movie. This is what it's going to look like, and this is what it's going to feel, or it's a drama. So Screenlife for this company, it's always doing a proof of concept to show what it will look like and to convince the execs and producers, like, okay, I could see this as a movie. Then I'll greenlight it. The
Gotcha.
documentary was more of, especially for this one, I think I offered to do it because like, hey, let me. I feel like we do have a story here with some emotion into it. Let me just spend a week and get you a pitch trailer or a sizzle trailer and see how that works. And then because we had to bid with another production company,
Mhm.
so doing proof of concepts helps try to win a bid. But yeah, that's my experience the last couple of years for these projects. But I'm also used to like working on narrative features that gets greenlit because of the script, and
Gotcha.
and then you just kind of dive into production and you go forward with it. So yeah, it depends on the project, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Well, all of that is in the now. But what I want to do is I want to go all the way back to the beginning of your career, and I want to know like what got you inspired, what got you into editing and production as a whole.
Oh man, that's gotta go back way back memory lane. I would
Hmm.
say in high school, my buddies and I we would always do these skits because at that time Bruce Lee, his films were popular. Jackie Chan, the kung fu movies and stuff
Yeah.
like that aired here in America. So and we were doing these skits and like I was like, man, we should just make a little like short film about this, and so we would use this high eight cameras. I don't know if you remember this. I sound old talking about these like old cameras with big tapes, and we would film. And I'm like, okay, how the heck am I going to edit this? Edit this? And so I went to this news and journalism department at the high school, and I was like, hey, do you have like an editing machine where I can just edit something? And he showed me this. I remember walking in and this. It was just two VHS decks and a monitor and two monitors attached to each VHS. And like, yeah, so you have a blank VHS? I'm like, no. It's like, oh, here, you could use one of ours. And it's like, this is how you do it. So it was tape to tape edit. If you
Nice.
remember that, it's analog editing. So I was pressing play and record at one end, and I keep going through it, and it's pretty much hard cuts throughout.
Hmm.
And then so I thought that was fun, and then we would make these little stupid silly short films, and friends loved it, but it was like so cheesy. But the process was fun for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was really fun. But I never thought about filmmaking until I got into to college because I went to University of Denver for a business program, which is what they were known for. And I was doing well in business, but I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't passionate about anything. It's like I need to find something I need to be passionate about. And I went through all these different degrees and courses with different areas, and I landed on this film and communication program at the University of Denver, which I didn't know they had a film program. I'm like, huh. This brought me back to my high school days. I'm like, what if I tried this for real? Yeah, so I went to the film program, and it was the second quarter, and the beginners class was done. But I wanted to sign up, and the professor, her name was Sheila Schroeder. First, I really want to give her a shout out as well for giving me the chance in this moment that really helped me learn the ropes.
Hmm.
But she was like, you know what, I'll sign you up into my advanced screenwriting class. And I was like, advanced? I mean, I still need to learn the basics, right? But so she just threw me into the advanced screenwriting class, and then
Oh my god.
yeah, and then she just gave me this chance, and that class was also a production class as well, where you team up with three other students on a script, and
Hmm.
then you choose your roles. And then somehow they selected me to be a director on the student short. But I was like, okay, I'll do direct. But as a team, you kind of direct it together anyways as a student when you work on these
Yeah.
projects. But at that time, I remember watching Memento
Nice. Yeah.
that just kind of screened through Sundance, and I remember watching that, and I was like, that edit was freaking amazing because to tell a story backwards, and I watched that movie like probably 5 or 8 times because I was just so amazed at the attention to detail to tell a story backwards, but also moving the story forward at the same time. And I was like,
Hmm.
that is some cool editing. And so after the student short, it was just doing classes for a while and just like learning other programs. And I remember going to when we started editing that student short, I was ready to do analog tape to tape edits, right? Because we were shooting mini DVs. So I didn't know there was a non-linear program, and they presented to me this program called Media 100, which is the first non-linear edit program that I've ever seen. I'm like, this is
Oh
freaking
wow.
amazing. I can move these clips and cut this, and I don't have to like record and press and play. And like it was so fast, and I was able to pick it up pretty quick. and then I got introduced to Final Cut Pro, the first versions of it.
Mhm.
That's when I start to be very interested in editing, but I didn't think that would be an editor as my profession because I wanted to be in the film business. I wanted to get my foot somewhere in the film business still. I was still a student, you know, and
Gotcha. Yeah.
I watched the movie Stigmata at the time, which was the #1 movie in America, and it was an article on the Denver Classified. I was born and raised in Denver, so
Mhm.
it was an article highlighting Rick Ramage, who wrote this movie and became #1, and he was Denver based. I was like, whoa, so cool! And it's like he's opening a Denver production company here in Denver. I'm like, and I tore that page out. I still have that page to this day.
Oh,
I was like, I'm
wow.
gonna find this company. I'm gonna find this guy. I'm gonna try to get my foot into in the door that way. It took a lot of
Mhm.
calls, a lot of phone calls where I finally got in with the professor that helped me to call in, and they set me up with with an interview, and then that got me an internship. So they were filming Ichabod, the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, a musical
Mhm.
for kids at the time, and Rick wrote it, and he's debuting as a director on that project. But I came in as a PA on the set, and I was ecstatic. I was like, I can't believe I'm on a movie set because I remember watching so many movies, and I'm like, how is it like to be on a set? And I'm on an actual movie set, but I was just doing PA work. I was taking out the trash, coffee, all the gritty work, right? But
Yeah.
I was just ecstatic to be on a set. And I remember watching from afar when they're filming scenes. I'm like, dang, that editor is so lucky. He gets to put that scene together. It's just cool to see the action come to life with the actors. So when the production wrapped, I was still an intern there for another month. So I would be assistant editing, the behind the scenes editor at the time.
Oh, okay.
And I remember working in the corner hallway, uh, just assembling footage for the editor for the behind the scenes footage. And I remember Rick walking behind me, watching from behind because it was a glossy monitor, so I could see his reflection.
Mhm.
And I was nervous, and I would just work really fast, just stay busy. He leaves, and he comes back with two other producers. Like, Lam, we need to talk to you. And I thought I was in trouble. I thought, okay, this is
Oh.
probably the end of my internship. It's like, you know how to use that software? I'm like, yeah, I do. And Rick would ask, so it seems like you know to use it, how to use it really well. I'm like, yeah, I pretty much just edited my student short on this. So okay, well, if Rick had a few scenes that he'd like you to put together, can you put it together? I'm like, yeah. I was just like surprised. I was like, yeah, sure. All right, so let's turn that computer off, haul it back to my office. And literally an hour later, I'm in his office. He presents me a pages of scenes like, hey, Lam, put this together and then get back to me. And I worked really fast, like an hour later, put the scene together, present it to him. He's like, this is what I was looking for. I'm like, okay, because he's working with another editor and he was struggling to find some sort of rhythm,
Mhm.
and I somehow he just loved my storytelling instincts, I guess, and that's then I took that opportunity and I just embraced it and I worked my butt off on that movie. So I was an intern. Somehow that led to become an editor for that movie, and that really spawned my editing career. So I'm grateful for Rick Ramage. I mean, for a new guy coming in to give me this opportunity, and I was really nervous around him because he's this acclaimed screenwriter. #1 movie with Stigmata and just sold a bunch of other scripts with big time directors, right?
Mhm.
And so I got to overshadow him throughout the years, um, screenwriting, and to see how he structures story and scenes together. And by watching that and screenwriting myself, learning screenwriting myself, I think that really benefited me as a storyteller, as an editor,
Mhm.
because I could essentially see how the pages are structured like a timeline, but it's just on a paper timeline,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
converting that to a digital timeline, and see how he would show me like pages on the wall, like, okay, this scene is too long, I'm cutting this out. I kind of applied that with editing when I realized in a sequence, if a scene looks too long in an overall aspect, like that scene's probably too long, and it was, then I would trim it down and make it more cohesive.
Oh,
And
wow.
so Rick Ramage, I'm grateful for him and everyone at the company that gave me this opportunity. And he's been my mentor and a wonderful friend, an amazing friend. So we're still working on stuff together, which I'm grateful for.
Oh, that's awesome that y'all are still working on stuff together after all this
Mm.
time. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So how was it for your first film pretty much out of college to be a musical? Like, that seems really daunting to me when you're just talking about it like that.
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely I had to pick it up fast because, obviously with a musical where it's scenes where they're singing, you
Mhm.
have to match the music, right? You have to match the lyrics, but you also have to match the acting. And so there's like two train of thoughts. I had to pick the best take of the acting part of it and the best take of the
Mhm.
choreography. And a lot of times both don't go together. So you just have to kind of maneuver the edit and make it work. So that was a lot of fun because the songs were awesome, but it was also challenging to edit a musical scene. It wasn't just as simple as just putting the dialogue together. It was just the choreography. So you're pretty much doing a choreography edit, their lyrical edit, and the acting edit, and the emotional edit. And so that
Oh,
was
man.
I'm surprised that my first edit project was a project like that. I mean, but it felt I don't know. I was just in it. I was just so grateful for the opportunity. So I just took the challenge in every which way, and I didn't think twice about it. So I just kind of learned on the go.
Nice. How long were you at, Rick's production company?
Yeah, so I was there for a good year or two, and then and then through word of mouth and referrals,
Mhm.
I worked on I kind of worked on documentary for a good 5 6 years at Serac Films, and um and that was a great learning process because it helped me learn to structure story without a script, obviously, and how can you make
Yeah.
something out of nothing a lot. And so I learned to make a lot of scenes from just a lot of like footage, and then you can make something out of it and make it emotional. And like I thought that was neat. So yeah, Rick's company was for a couple of years, and then everyone at the company kind of branched off, did their own thing, and Rick
Gotcha.
branched off, did his own thing as well. And we stayed in touch though. We stayed in touch throughout my documentary years. And then yeah, and the documentary was experience was fun because a lot of those films got into film festivals,
Mhm.
and I got to experience film festivals in person through that. And so that was a pretty cool experience. So yeah, I was there for 5 6 years, and then I got worn out. I mean, doing documentary for so long and going through so many hours of footage, you really get worn out.
Yeah.
So I was like exhausted, but my heart was narrative. I want to go back to narrative.
Mhm.
And so for a while there after that, Ryan Ross, who came from the production company, he opened up his own production company and he did a lot of commercial work. So I did a lot of commercials for a good, next 3 4 years with him.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful for him to keep me afloat on these projects and also keep learning as an editor, working on these other aspects with commercials, working with the ad agencies has a whole nother aspect to it as well,
Mhm.
to cut a story together in 30 seconds. How do you tell that? So that was a fun experience. But yeah, that's been my journey since Rick's company to production to commercials, and then I took the leap and made the move out here. Everyone's been encouraging me to move out for so long, and I was scared. I mean, because it's so competitive out here,
Yeah.
and I had to question myself if I was ready. And it's like, I think I'm ready. Let me give this a shot. And then yeah, I got here, and then I pretty much jumped on Romeo and Juliet shortly after, and here I am. Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, as somebody who edited commercials for about 2.5 years, you make me feel really good about talking about that because that's, like you said, it adds, like, a whole new thing that, like, I never really thought about, like you said, trying to build a narrative in 15, 30 seconds and trying to make it cohesive and, like, entertaining enough, I guess, for
yeah,
people to watch.
yeah, absolutely.
So how do you like you said, you moved down, and I remember in one of my previous interviews, they talked about the importance of like lining up projects. So, do you have a strategy that you employ for something like that? As far as like you said, you've got like the Courage and you've got Romeo and Juliet. Do you have like a rotating spindle, I guess, of projects that you're working on at any given time?
No, I think luckily I was able to land a gig with this production company, this Screenlife production company, Boslovs,
Hmm.
where that kept me busy.
Got you.
But for when I first moved out here, I was sending out resumes. I was reaching out to all my contacts I worked with over the years,
Hmm.
and I was just pretty much networking as much as I can. And then I got a call back with this company, and then I just took the job and did these trailers. And yeah, and luckily since the Sundance and South by Southwest experience, I'm grateful to be acknowledged at this level for the work that I
Hmm.
did. And it kind of led me to the next project. So I'm hoping to sign with an agent soon that will keep me busy in that way.
Yeah.
There's been interest in that, and I mean, there's not much I can say about my next project, but yeah, I just signed on
Mhm.
with a project with Amazon Studios, so
Oh, awesome.
I'm excited. I'm excited for this next level. I guess I'm nervous too, but excited.
Yeah, that's super cool. You mentioned networking, and that's something that I feel like so many people today, really myself included, have such an issue with. So like what tips I guess would you have on networking? Are you going to events? Are you just hitting people up on social or what's your strategy for that?
Yeah, when I moved here, I signed up on Staff Me Up. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I Staff Me Up, and I forgot another site, but I would submit resumes through that,
Mhm.
and I now would look up companies, that I might be interested in to see if there's openings, and I would do cold call. I would just cold emails, send
Nice.
cold emails out, and just introduce myself. And a lot of times they actually come back to me. I'm like, okay, cool. But I really prepare my demo reel as
Mhm.
much as I can and keep that up to date, and then have my CV, my resume ready, and I just send emails and just keep applying and applying and applying, and I also reach out with all my contacts, old colleagues that I worked in the past, and they would connect me with other producers and get their tips and advice too of how to get my foot in the next door and things like that. So it's just constant. Yeah.
So as far as, winding down and everything goes, I want to know, can you pick a favorite child? What is your favorite thing that you've done so far? Or like favorite moment if you can't pick a favorite child?
Wow. That's oh man, that's I feel like I have a lot. Can I give you a couple two favorite moments?
Yeah, sure.
I'll say my first favorite moment was going back to my first experience on the Ichabod musical feature on the set. I remember because I understood what it meant to be a starving artist, right?
Mhm.
I was a broke college student, and I would just pay. I would pay using my credit card just to pay for parking.
Oh
That's how
gosh.
broke I was. But I was excited to be on the set because it just felt right, and I worked my butt off on the set. And I remember on the last day as we wrapped, it was bittersweet. I was sad. I was like, man, I hope I get another opportunity to work on a set again.
Mhm.
And I didn't think I would. And so I just cleaned up everything. I just kept working. Even they wrapped up, I kept working. And I remember that night, every crew member walked up to me and just kind of just gave me this push, like, great work, Lam. You're the hardest working on the set. Just want to let you know, keep it up. You will get there.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
like, I'm getting a little emotional talking about it because it's just that every single department came up to me and just kind of kept pushing me. It's like, keep at it, keep working hard, you will get there. And the last person was Rick Ramage, and I was busy just cleaning up, and I didn't think he was come up to me. He's like, Lam, just want to say you're the hardest working person that I've seen on set. Everyone worked hard, but you're the hardest. Keep at it. I hope you still. I'll see you at the company for the internship. And obviously, from what happened there since then, but that was the
Mhm.
biggest moment for me because it just kind of gave me the belief that maybe I can do this. I'll just stick it through.
Man.
Um, my biggest moment would be when Carrie called me on Friday the 13th to tell me about how the film got into Sundance, because I've always dreamed of being at Sundance and South by Southwest and never thought I'd be a part of it. So when he told me that, I everything slowed down for like a good hour. I just was on this high. I was on this high literally for like a week. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, we're actually in freaking Sundance. I can't believe this. And then Sundance, the experience was so amazing because uh, uh, I mean, Adobe reached out to me to do this editors panel. Then I had these a lot of these magazines and publishers wanted to talk to me because of the film and the format and how I did it.
Mhm.
And so I was it kind of encapsulated all 17 years of my experience. Like, I'm finally getting acknowledged for my hard work, and that was a precious moment. And then the South by Southwest experience was a whole nother level. I mean, to be at most festivals, I'm like this. I'm just ecstatic.
Yeah.
But when the production manager called me one night and was like, "Hey, Lam, can you jump on a call in 10 minutes with Carrie and the festival director?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure." And I wasn't sure what it was. I had an inkling, like maybe it's like an audience award, maybe we won some award as a film.
Mhm.
And then when she told me, "Hey, we just want to congratulate you, Lam, for winning the Adobe Best Editing Award for Romeo and Juliet," and I remember in that moment, Carrie was screaming through the Zoom call. He was like, "Yes, oh my gosh, man, you worked your butt off. You did this. I'm so happy for you." But while he was doing that, I was, and ironically, talking to you about this whole thing. I was flashing back through the first day at the internship
Yeah.
and kind of thought, just kind of went through those moments, all the ups and downs I went through to catch up to this moment. And when he finally finished, like shouting and out of celebration for me, then a tear came out of my eye because I was just so emotional. And they're like, "Oh, you have anything to say?" I'm like, "I'm just so grateful." I just said, I just, Sundance, and to be screened at Sundance and South by Southwest was an honor for me already. And I can't believe I won an award. I just never thought that would happen. Never ever thought that would happen. And Janet Pearson, the festival director, was saying, "Well, I mean, not a lot of filmmakers get a chance to do this, to go back to back festivals and to win an award along the way. So you're pretty much hitting like a home run." So Romeo and Juliet right now, I would say would be my favorite child because this is what kind of set me up. And I would say um, also because of what I've learned, I really want to give a shout out to Kerry Williams. He's a very talented director and storyteller, and he really pushed me to become a better editor. I certainly learned a lot from him, and we did something really special together on this project. And I look forward to working on another one with him.
Well, I honestly could not think of a nicer way to end it. That was perfect. That was awesome. And I mean, legitimately congrats. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this movie or at the beginning of the podcast, but it's like you read the synopsis and you're like, is this gonna work out? And then you watch it and you guys just had me enraptured. Like it was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed the film. So congratulations on the award. Not only the award, but pulling it off. Like what a great movie. And everything. It was awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, Corey, and thank you so much for the praise on the film. I mean, the Screenlife film, we were worried about it because we were worried about it at first because of stigma, right? You read the description like told on their phones. I don't think it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that it pleasantly surprised you, and hopefully it does the same on a worldwide scale once it gets out.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but no, this was a lot of fun. I never thought I would do a podcast as well. So this is a lot of fun chatting with you, Corey, and it's actually a lot of fun to kind of go back memory lane and just kind of like, I don't know, walk through those steps again.
Yeah, the hour like completely flew by. Is there anywhere that you want to direct people, like a Twitter or anything like that you want people to hit you up at?
Yeah, I mean, you could they could find me on my Twitter and Instagram is Lam T underscore Nguyen, Nguyen. So yeah, they could find me through that if they want. But yeah, I mean, best of luck on your podcast, Corey. I think this is amazing that you're doing this. I think helps a lot of new filmmakers to kind of get insight from everyone else on how they work and their methods. And I'm definitely following and tuning in as well.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. That means the world. And if you want to be just like Lamb, you can hit us up we're on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get podcasts. We should be there. We're also on YouTube, the Just an Editor podcast. Remember, guys, feel free to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you all in the edit bay.